Hello, my love. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the major astrological transits for January of 2026. That's right. We are finally here. We are finally into this new year, this new vibration, this new energy that is going to really set a very fast pace moving forward. There's a lot of fast energy in 2026. And the thing about a lot of the energy has to do with the fact that we're going to have a lot of planets that go and start taking up space in air and fire signs. Well, when the air blows and blows and blows, it can bring change, it can bring information, it can also dry things out. When you add fire to the mix, it pushes fire, it spreads fire, it spreads like wildfire, this kind of concept. This would be a hell of a year if your spirit animal is a fire hawk, by the way, because there can be some damage. But if we're not going with damage, we're not going with the negative side of what that can mean, then the other side can be positive, and it can be more around drive, desires, ambitions of a new direction. Things that I was saying in 2025 is like, look, 2025 and 2026, we're getting accustomed to the new normal, but 2025 is a glimpse because we are not completely ready for this yet. We have other shit we got to deal with, things we have to clear, things we have to purge, things that have to be disconnected from that did not go with us into the new normal. For some of us, that was very, very easy. Cutting ties with toxic family members, leaving that old job behind. Some of it was simple. Some of it was pushed and forced. You got fired. You didn't leave that job voluntarily. And it sucked. I know. For others, it was loss and it was heartbreak. And it started to do something different and changed us internally. Even the internal changes were necessary to prepare us for what's next. And now we're going into the beginning. The first month of a 1 year, one being an instigator of new things. It is the beginning. Aces are ones. New path, new message, a new beginning, a new direction. January brings a lot of new into the fold. Now, the thing about the astrology, if we tie it into that numerology part, that 1 month and that 1 year, is we have four planets going into a conjunction with the sun throughout the month of January, four of them. Now, whenever it comes to a planet coming into a conjunction with the sun, there is this shedding, this catching of fire, this burning. If you've ever seen like the Hunger Games, think of whenever Katniss does her little twirls with her dresses and stuff like that, how the fabric will suddenly illuminate into a flame to create another outfit, another symbol. For some of us, it will be a symbol. There's something catching fire and burning so that way something new can come through. New skin, new armor, new ideas, new direction, new drives, new determination, new desires. There is a new that's meant to take shape. Now, what are the four planets that will be coming into a conjunction with the sun? First and foremost, I've already started talking about a lot of these. I've been forewarning for a while. And even in the week ahead forecast, where we bridged December to January, I was talking about look how close Mars and Venus, because there's our first two, are getting to the sun. Right out the gate, January 6th, we are going to have a Venus Cazimi. Venus will come into the heart of the sun. Beauty, appearance, the way something tastes, our desires in taste, the aesthetic of something, how we want to make something more beautiful, something that gives us pleasure. And there can be something that comes into light, a discovery. Now, for some people, it's going to be a discovery of that aesthetic measure. For other people, it will be a revealing of something around our loved ones. Venus emphasizes love. In the same week, just a few days later, the sun will come into a conjunction with Mars. And of all the planets that will hit a conjunction to Mars, I'm sorry, the conjunction to the sun, Mars too, but a conjunction to the sun, I argue Mars is the most important. Here's why. The sun and Mars only have a conjunction once every 2 years. The last time this occurred was in November of 2023, and it happened in Scorpio. This one is happening in Saturn's sign. Within a month after the Sun-Mars conjunction, Saturn will completely submerge into Aries, belly flop, full dive in, deep side of the pool, but it's Aries, so it's a fiery pool. Saturn will completely submerge into Aries until 2028. To me, and what I've been seeing in my intuition, when I'm meditating on this, there is something about what comes into light in January. The arrival, the discovery, the new, whatever's coming into light, whatever's coming into focus, literally sets an energy towards what we will truly be focusing on in the new normal. And that again is the Sun-Mars conjunction. I'm not dismissing Venus. She's important. Mars sets the tone. Mars sets the trajectory. Mars sets the tune. It sets so much into place. And the thing is, Venus is right there. That's why I'm saying Venus is important. And some of us, the things that will come to light through January, it will be our drive, our desire, our disruption. It's Mars, God of War, pivotal disruption or chaotic disruption. It's not always the best. But if you are a Mars-ruled individual, it's usually a little bit easier than if you were a Venus-ruled individual. So let's be fair about that. There's something in here that once it comes into focus, once it comes into light, it also sets the awareness, it sets the stage for what we will be focusing on in the course of Saturn going into Aries. That's planet number 2. And it's one I've been warning about for months, harping about for months. And I will continue to harp on as we go through 2026. It's setting the stage. Planet number 2 is Mars. Oh, number 3 will be Mercury. By the end of the month, whenever we go from Capricorn transits to Aquarius transits, as soon as the sun goes into Aquarius, Mercury will follow, and we will start Aquarius season basically with a Mercury cazimi. Mercury will come into the heart of the sun, bringing new information, new ideas, new topics, some kind of new that we did not know before. Something is meant to come to light. It is meant to come into focus. It is meant to be revealed, but it's mercurial things that can be heavy for some. For others, it really kind of depends on how it's unfolding and is your personal aspects. For me personally, Mercury is either a financial thing or a debt thing, or it's a client thing. It's friends, clients, something like this. So sometimes it can be very, very mundane. Certain things coming into light around communication, travel, things along these lines. A Mercury cazimi. And then a few days later, that will be followed up with conjunctions to Pluto. Mercury will hit a conjunction to Pluto, as well as the sun will hit a conjunction to Pluto. The Sun-Pluto conjunction is a triggering vibration. Now it's going to be a bunch of other planets also hitting conjunctions to Pluto. So I feel like we will have a little bit of foreshadowing as to whatever the trigger is going to be. But me personally, as a Scorpio rising, I always tell you guys my placements if it's going to be applicable as to what I'm saying. I will purposely set aside time during Sun-Pluto conjunctions for meditation, because there's something I need to change, I need to focus on, I need to work on over the course of a year, because we only get one Sun and Pluto conjunction a year. A lot of times I get very clear energies as to like where I need to let go of fear and what I need to focus on in transforming myself. The Sun Pluto conjunction. Now, what's going to be different with this one compared to previous years is the fact that this is not as transitional as the last one. Last time we had a Sun Pluto conjunction here, it was like Pluto was trying to move over. It was just getting its bearings into Aquarius. And it was also very much opposing Mars in retrograde. And this is how we started 2025. And I know for a lot of us, the beginning of 2025 now feels like compressed memory files, and I get it. But there are things that go back to the spring of 2025 that are also playing into the vibration of the first part of 2026. For some people, when the Sun Pluto conjunction happens, it will trigger fear, it will trigger insecurity. For other people, it will show you something that you need to transform. Sometimes that's an internal transformation, sometimes it'll be an external transformation. And in the most layman's ways, anytime we have heavy Pluto transits, there can be something around the plumbing. And it's funny because every time I say that and somebody hears it, I get a message afterwards going, "What day did you say the plumbing thing was going to happen? The plumbing thing happened. The plumbing thing happened. Oh my God." And it's hilarious. It's just hilarious to me. Sorry. I'm still fighting Guck, but it's hilarious to me. It really is. Now, not everybody's going to have the plumbing thing. A lot more people will feel the trigger. A trigger of a wound, a trigger of a fear, a trigger of an insecurity. And considering there's more than one planet that has an impact around wounds, a lot of us are going to be taking steps in the new to how we overcome certain wounds. And a lot of that has to do with the balance around Chiron. Because as we go through a lot of this month, especially in the Capricorn transits, and I'm kind of jumping around with how I describe that part, there's going to be oppositions to Jupiter, Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter in its exaltation, wanting to be nurturing, wanting to be caring. There's going to be a lot of information whenever it comes to people's health, especially whenever it comes to things tied to doctors, gurus, teachers. Based off of Jupiter in Cancer, there's going to be things around the nursing, things around like the patterns of care, the process of care. There's going to be things around people's health that also take place in January, especially our elders, people that have had longstanding illnesses. And there's a pattern of certain illnesses that started to pop up in 2025 that I will kind of cover here in a little bit too, that I'm just not ready to talk about in this moment. But not only will there be these oppositions to Jupiter, there will also be these squares to Chiron. In October, I started beating up certain energies, certain transits, going, hey, we are having certain things come to light. And the best way to heal situations and finally break certain habits will be to do the opposite. Now, for some of you, when you did the opposite, the epiphany energy of like, holy crap, I just saw myself break a pattern. And it was wonderful. It was very surreal for a lot of people. For others, the surreality was even more painful. By doing the opposite, it's like, oh, it's like I almost did something I didn't want to do. Like, but what has it shown you since then? What has it shown you? What has it taught you? Do you realize that you were wearing the rose-colored glasses? Do you realize that you were looking at everything through some kind of broken lens that didn't allow you to truly see that person for what they were? 9 times out of 10, doing the opposite, even if you didn't like the outcome, it still gave you a different viewpoint. It gave you a different arena of energy. There are certain things that we did in October that directly impact what we start to do next in January. One of those is having to do with the Jupiter Chiron square. The first one, the first wave of it, was the most exact in October. The second wave was late December. However, There was another transit that started in October that I started harping on. It was in the same week. It was the week of October 20th. So if you guys have been listening to me for a while, like, look, the energies of this week are so important. I beat up on that week and beat up and beat up and beat up. The other key transit from that time frame was the start of the Mercury-Mars conjunctions. That was the most exact on October 19th and 20th. Jupiter Chiron was like the 22nd. The new moon in Libra was the 21st. Like, there's a lot of little transits all through that week. It's like, this is a very important week, guys. You don't realize it yet, but it's very important. And there were certain things that we started to connect to, started to commit to, started to be pushed towards. Sometimes it was an energetic push. And for some people, the disruption of Mercury, Mars, forcing you to do the opposite was like, instead of going into your normal routine of work, you got fired. Like, a lot of people had suddenly had a hit of a layoff or something like that, somewhere between October and November. And it was a directional hit, even if it didn't feel directional at the time. And that's the thing. Sometimes whenever something hits you, it doesn't feel directional. It just sucks. It feels sucky. And I get that. I really do. But whenever I'm looking at like the encountering around the pattern of that, is like anything that we were disconnected from in 2025 was a necessary placement of space. We're making space for the new. And now as we're going into January, we're going into the new. But that Mercury-Mars conjunction, again, we are going through a series of 5. And in my opinion, the first one, the third one, and the fifth one are all connected. The second and the fourth are connected for different reasons. I'm not talking about these two. I want to focus on these 3. The first one, again, October 19th to 20th, we had disruptive news, disruptive conversations, disruptive information that set certain things into motion. This third one is going to occur in January, the third Mercury-Mars conjunction. And where will it occur? It will appear in Capricorn, most exact January 17th and 18th, just so everybody is aware. It is a Mercury-Mars conjunction happening in Saturn's sign. Put a pin in that. The reason this is all connected in the ways that I'm reading it is these conjunctions start at a Mars ruled sign, Scorpio, back in October. It will end in April in a Mars ruled sign. But whenever it ends in April, it will end in a conjunction to Saturn. This second one, the one that happens in January, it's in Saturn's sign. There's news, there's disruptive communication, sign-offs, certain things put into motion in January, necessary things put into motion in January that will directly connect to April. There are things that we are doing in January that we were pushed towards since October. We either felt driven and determined to put something into motion in a certain way, or there was something else that kind of happened, whether we made the choice or not. If you were pushed into it, some of us were dragging other people, some of us were pushed into it. There was some kind of communication, some type of commitment, some type of news directly from October that is impacting the layout of the new in January. But again, a lot of this is directly going to speak to April. So when I'm saying we have a lot going on and there's layers to how it's happening, I'm very serious about this. Some of the things that come into light, that come into focus, that get revealed, the new of January requires immediate reaction and decisions. But the reaction needs to be a responsible reaction. What's going to be best for everyone? The attunement will then set something else into motion. There's a clear line and a pattern that's taking us even past April, but I'm not ready to talk about that yet. I'm really not. But there's a line of how these transits are connecting and pulling us into a new, very fast, spread, move quickly, a lot of things happening quickly all throughout 2026. And if we move too fast, The thing is, we're going to miss some things. That's going to be a big foreshadowing of vibration as we continue through 2026, just to be clear. But we are setting a lot of things into place, discovering things we did not know that we were blind to in some ways up until this point, or we were completely not connected to until we get into parts of January. Because some of you, part of the new in January is going to be connecting to your new jobs. It's connecting to new people. There was no way to be connected to it sooner because we needed an effective date, a start date. And for a lot of you, your start dates are in January. So you're going directly into something new, and everything is new. And if that's the case, trying to pinpoint one particular area over another that's going to have layers onto what we deal with later will be harder. But the bottom line is January brings a lot of new. A lot. And trying to focus on something too deep ahead of time, you're just going to be throwing crap against the wall to see what sticks. I'm letting you know, parts of January, you're just throwing crap against the wall. It is what it is. We're just going to try to see what sticks. That's the best way we can handle it. Okay. Let's get into the transits. Let's get into the month, and it's going to be a busy month. When I wrote out all the transits for 2026, of every month, most of them, like every transit fit on one page. January, no. It needed a page and a half. There was 2 pages of dates, 2 pages of transits, and I kind of condensed part of it to be just like a page and a half, when really I could have made it 2 full pages almost if I wanted to. If I would have literally just put one line at a time, that would have been different. But anyways. All right, how are we starting the new year? We are starting the new year with Mercury going through its square to Neptune. Now, this happened the most exact at 7:15 a.m. Central Standard Time, but I got this at 2:30 because, you can see the square. Here's Mercury 29:57. Here's Neptune at 29:31. So you can still see that we've had the square going on. For some people, this was news. For some people, this was a challenge. For some people, this felt inspirational. For some people, there was kind of a disconnect. It really kind of depends on how you've been dealing with Neptune. And we are, over the course of January, wrapping up Neptune in Pisces completely. I'll talk more about that in the closing. I want to kind of put more focus on a lot of the things that are coming to light in January, and then we'll talk about some Neptune stuff. At 3:10 p.m., so I'm going to just go ahead and bump this by 1 hour, Mercury is going to go into Capricorn. And look at all that Capricorn. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, over the course of the last few days of December, all of the first few days of January, we have these planets getting closer and closer to the sun. At any point, whenever you have a planet so close to the sun, we can again feel that burning, that shedding kind of vibration, but it's bringing new things into light. It's bringing new things into focus. And this has a very timely, for some people, responsible, for some people, it's about your role kind of tone as the month progresses, whether that is your role within the family, whether that is your role in the workplace, whether that is your role for yourself. Some of you are starting to recognize a different version of yourself in the mirror. You are disconnecting from the old version of yourself. And for some of you, that's going to have like a physical aesthetic change. And considering we're getting closer and closer to Venus and the sun, I'm not surprised by that. But I will say, new year, new me. This is one of the most powerful years for a New Year's resolution that I've ever seen. So if you are really trying to set an intention, do that vision board, put out that manifestation of what you're wanting, start doing every little bit of those setting of intentions, because this is the kind of year where you can truly manifest a desire and have it kind of take over what you're wanting. But manifest wisely, set your intentions wisely, and make sure it's stuff that you can have levels of control with, not over, but with. Okay. All right. I'm going to bump this 24 hours to the next day. If you listen to the week ahead forecast, I missed this, but at 8:37 a.m. Central Standard Time, Chiron ended its retrograde. Now, Chiron is still loosely in its square to Jupiter, and as the month progresses, we will have multiple squares from Capricorn to Chiron. But there's something about a mental shift around wounds, what we are not allowing us to hurt anymore. And by not allowing certain things to continue to be a wound, we're going to be able to push some solutions. And I feel like that's also a part of the January energy now that Chiron is direct. And again, the direct energy starts on January 2nd. On the 3rd, we get our full moon in Cancer. Now, this is going to happen in the overnight hours. I'm literally 12 hours away from it. So let me back this up. This is the most exact at 4:02 a.m. I got this now at 4:30. Here's the sun, 13 degrees 3. Here's the full moon, 13:18. Close enough for government work. I'm not moving it anymore. And this also feels like a pinnacle of things in our healing process. I do feel like there's going to be the starts of new emotions. And for some people, that's going to be very, very gentle. For other people, it's whenever you're going to finally put up a wall going, I'm not going to continue a pattern. And that's setting an intention again for that new vibration as we go into January, because we're only 3 days in now. I will do a full moon video on the day of with this one, but I feel like there's going to be a whole string of emotions that can kind of flood through. But for some people, it's going to be gentle emotions. It's going to be a caring, a consideration. For other people, it is going to be a storm. That's just how I feel about it. That's what I keep picking up on. After the full moon, we don't have any more direct transits for a few days, but again, we have this buildup of these planets coming into a conjunction with the sun. The first conjunction to the sun is going to be Venus, and this is the most exact on January 6th. And this is going to actually happen at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So this by a few hours. We'll get a little bit closer to it. At 10:30, here's Venus, here's the sun. 16 degrees, 21 minutes. Something is coming into the heart of the sun. Now, again, Venus is physical beauty. It is going to have to do with levels of our taste, of our pleasures, of our desires, but gentle desires, things that give us pleasure. So for some people, there will be a discovery of something that brings us pleasure. For other people, there will be a showcasing of something that is a physical change. So don't be surprised if we're going into the first week of January and you see a bunch of people with whole new looks, whole new focuses on their health and their body, whole new shifts in how they want to be seen. There is a discovery for some. For others, there's going to be more things tied to like physical aesthetical change. And now if this is having to do with elders, we need to be paying attention to blood sugar issues, by the way. If this is having to do with elders, we also want to pay attention to kidney, lung, because if we're having any type of breathing issues, this is not going to be good for them. Kidney issues, not going to necessarily be good for them, because we can discover certain things around the function, around the course of them, just making people aware if we are dealing with health things. Because sometimes whenever a planet's coming into a conjunction with the sun, the burning can literally impact the functions and parts of our body. Venus rules our female sexual organs, anything tied to our mouth, our throat, all the way down into our lungs, because this is ways that we take in our pleasure. We smell perfumes, we taste foods. So any of this mouth nostril area of intake through the throat and stuff like this, we can have, again, discoveries around things that Venus rules on the body. And I want to be clear about that. And considering Mars is here, we have this disruption around Mars. It would probably come through blood tests or something like that. We also have this building opposition to Jupiter, which is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. For some people, there will not be teaching lessons. For some people, there will be health lessons. And I want people to be aware of that. That can be a lot of the new in January. Okay. On the next day, we're going to get our Venus-Mars conjunction. So that is actually the most exact around 8 p.m. So I'm not going to move this by hour, but you can also see like everything's right on top of each other. The amount of things that come into light, that come into focus, the discoveries, if you will, that will be going on this week. The debuts, the revealing, anything along these lines. I want to say a different word now. Expect new things that come to light that can quite literally have an impact on you as an individual, on people that you love, on your desires, on your drive, on your ambition. There is a revealing in this vibration. So here's the Sun-Venus conjunction. Oh, Sun, Venus, Venus, Mars. Again, that's the most exact 8 p.m. on the 7th. By the time we get to the 9th, in the morning time, bump this to the 9th, we get our exact conjunction between the Sun and Mars. Mars rules the head from basically the eyes up. So anything tied to the head, if we're going with health stuff, anytime tied, certain things tied to like your sexual organs, again, especially male sexual organs, your blood, your skin, quite literally your skin, can be tied to Mars here. So just kind of going off of that. I'll have more health stuff that I'll talk about in the closing, and that's going to be kind of tied to Neptune, just FYI. Um, there can be things there can also be things that are coming to light that are very disruptive. Now, can it happen on the 8th? Absolutely. We're building to this for days. There can be a multitude of things that come to light that are disruptive. This is when it's the most exact. So there can be a desire that is revealed, there can be a drive, there can be an ambition, there can be a goal that comes into focus, Sun conjunct Mars, just as much as there can be a tension, a fight, a discovery of something that creates anger and frustration. That can also be parts of Mars. Mars can be pivotal disruption or chaotic disruption. It's just a matter of how we're handling said disruption. For some people, there can be benefits to this, though, because on the day we get the Sun Mars conjunction, which again, most exact at 5:30 a.m. But at 10, or we have it at 10:30 right now. But literally, if I bump this to 11:30, which I'm not going to do, Venus will hit her full opposition to Jupiter. So for some people, the disruption also has a benefit, like literally the same day. So for some people, this will be two separate situations. One thing that comes into light, that comes into discovery, that is either pivotal or chaotic, Sun conjunct Mars. And a second thing where we have some kind of news, some type of benefit, some type of acknowledgement of a desire, of something that's bringing us pleasure based off of the Venus Jupiter opposition. Or if we're going with completely on a health thing, I'm very stuck on health thing. There can be something that comes up in a blood test, Sun conjunct Mars, because Mars rules the blood, that also impacts elements of the body, whether it's a Mars thing or a Venus thing. They're still so close. It's like horseshoes and hand grenades. We're doing damage no matter what. There's something that's kind of burning up, or its function can be changing if it's a health thing. For other people, it's going to be like you go to work, you find out that a bunch of people got fired, but then by that afternoon, you get a call to come into the main office thinking that you're next, and they're like, oh no, we're promoting you. What? I've been in this situation before, by the way. Everybody got fired, but you. What just happened? Yeah, that can happen too. It's that level of like disruption, weird little handout. Like, I don't know if I should take this. This feels like a trap, and it could be. I'm just making you aware, like, this is the pattern of the energy. For some people, this is all going to be one encompassing thing. For some people, it will be two very big separate things as we go through the course of the day. Now, considering the moon is in Libra during the Venus Jupiter opposition, this doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world. It can be something that's meant to be fair. Moon in Libra, meant to help with the balance of certain things. Moon in Libra while the Venus Jupiter opposition is going on. So let's be fair, there can be extra layers to this that scream to the need of benefit. Okay. On the next day, the sun will hit its opposition to Jupiter. And this is why I didn't want to move everything by hour a minute ago. But the sun will hit its opposition to Jupiter as well as Mars. So overnight hours of the 9th into the 10th, the sun's opposition to Jupiter is 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then by the time we get into actual morning time, 8:30 a.m., so right after sunrise, we get into Mars opposite Jupiter. There is some of these things that it's going to be three separate events, three separate situations, Venus, Sun, Mars. For other people, it's going to be just this pile on of one thing after another, but it's all around a certain individual, a certain focus, a certain idea. There's that much disruption going on. And considering we did so many changes, necessary changes, this can have a big health impact. But what I'm thinking about is like all the stuff that we were doing in November and December in the Sagittarius transits. This can be like the awakened tone of our own role in something that has recently occurred that has led into this moment. I'm probably not wording that well, but that's the best that I got. Like there some of this has layers that it can tie back to previous energies. Okay. It's still got new, but it can still tie back to old. I want to make sure I say that part correctly. On the 11th, 10:30 a.m. exactly, Venus is going to square Chiron. Well, almost exactly. I think I'm just past it. So here's Venus, 22 degrees, 39 minutes. Here is Chiron, 22:38. We have steps that we want to take, an idea of something that has now come into light, that has now come into focus, that we want to try to push a solution. And I feel like these squares from Capricorn to Chiron is exactly that. This is the solution. This is how we fix the situation. This is how we deal with that wound. Putting more awareness as to why we needed to do the opposite months ago. Really enforcing why that opposite need was there. On the 11th, right here, Venus is going to square Chiron. On the 12th, the very next day, the sun is going to square Chiron. And then on the 13th, I'm just going to keep going. Mars is going to square Chiron. And the Mars one is the one I'm kind of more interested in because Mars is hosting Chiron. Mars rules Aries. Mars is hosting that Chiron. Over these few days, Venus' square to Chiron can be an implementation of one nice, calm, easy act to bridge an energy, to help with the solution, where the sun can put more light, put something more into focus. Venus might be a blip on the radar for some people, where the sun brings something into light. We showcase something, we challenge something, we put something more there. But Mars immediately afterwards is because that light was there and it showed us something. We are reacting to it in our new role, in the new vibration, based off of the new information that has come through. There is something that we are pushing towards, and it is immediate, necessary reaction towards solutions. Now, what that looks like for everybody in the mundane sense is going to be kind of hinky to figure out. But over these 3 days, the 11th, the 12th, the 13th, we have all of these squares to Chiron, and they all kind of feel like they're offering some certain directions towards how we heal a wound, but not everybody is going to be able to heal everything. The thing about the Chiron is he's the wounded healer. He still heals other people, even though he has wounds of himself he cannot heal on his own. Some of these solutions are topical. They're not going to fix everything, but they're going to give us the best plan with how we move ahead. Bump it a day. We're going to go to January 14th. And on January 14th, this is more in the overnight hours at 2:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, but Mercury will hit its opposition to Jupiter. Now, this is interesting because Jupiter is hosting the North Node. Mercury is hosting the South Node. I'm going to pull this to my face now. Back in June, roughly June 8th, June 9th timeframe, we had a Mercury Jupiter conjunction that I said back then. We are putting something together, putting something into focus that is directly going to impact eclipse season, because we only get one Jupiter Mercury conjunction. That was back then. Throughout the entire hosting of the eclipse axis going through Virgo and Pisces. Now we're getting an opposition. Not waves of an opposition, one opposition. Mercury's opposition to Jupiter in this vibration. And there can be certain news, certain communication, certain things that is coming through right around this time that is going to directly have an impact around we're going to deal with in the next eclipse season. Why do I say that? Well, the next eclipse season, we will have another eclipse in Virgo. We will not have one in Pisces, though. What we will have, though, is Mercury being retrograde in Pisces through eclipse season. Some of the things that we do in January directly impact the way we start to do things in April, but we got to get through March to get to April. Some of the news, some of this communication, some of the information, this can be a result of some sort, since it's the last planet in a chain that's hitting the opposition to Jupiter, some kind of results that come through can set the stage. It can start giving a foreshadowing to changes that we start to make through eclipse season, because eclipse season is going to be a very surreal transitional vibration. It's not intense, but it is intense. But it's very transitional for people in their healing process, for people in certain emotions and bringing certain wounds up to the surface. But there's going to be foreshadowing in this Mercury Jupiter opposition. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's playing into everything else, but be very aware of this day, this January 14th, because I feel like the news of it also kind of triggers a transition in more than one way, but one element of it I feel like directly impacts the next eclipse season, which will be late February and most of March. Okay. Oh, there's something interesting about the 15th and 16th, because I feel like these 2 days are kind of like limbo transitional days. First thing that's going to happen on January 15th, Venus is going to hit a sextile to Saturn and a trine to Uranus almost simultaneously. They're a couple hours apart. Venus's sextile to Saturn is the most exact right after midnight at 12:30 a.m. Venus's trine to Uranus is the most exact at 9:30 a.m. And we're getting really close to the third and final Saturn Uranus sextile. This is going to happen just a few days later, but there's something about these sextiles between Neptune and Uranus and Saturn and Uranus that it's like it's impacting the collective. And there's something that is meant to shift in regards to people in positions of authority and positions of power, that we get the wave of acknowledgement towards something, or we find out something that is going to impact a series of things that impacts the collective. This is harder to pinpoint for some people in regards to like your daily life in a mundane sense. I would say there might be some kind of tone to these transits, these sextiles to Saturn and trine to Uranus simultaneously. There can be a tone in this. And this feels like the first little bits that speaks to a transitional tone. But whatever's coming to light, it's meant to be like, oh, I found something that's meant to be so helpful. But then once you see it, you're like, this is not helpful. Where did you get this? How did this happen? On the 16th, on the very next day, Mercury will hit its square to Chiron. Now, this is going to happen right after midnight. For some people, this will still be the 15th. For others, it's going to kind of play out more on the 16th. And this kind of, again, news, this information of how we put a solution together, some final talks about something because it's Mercury, some final plans, some sign-offs, like literally signature pages can be a part of this. Sign-offs, like this is the solution moving forward. This is what we're going to do moving forward. Oh, once we get to the 17th, there is a surrealness of a different set of vibrations setting in. There's something about the 15th and 16th that they really do kind of feel like there's a shift in our focus. We go into the 17th and we have a slew of transits that are going to start in the overnight hours. And I want people to understand, like the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, like there's a lot that goes into these transits. And we're going to basically, for the next little bit, do everything by hour. So our first transit's roughly around 2:30 a.m. And that's when Venus is going to hit her sextile to Neptune. You can see this here. Here's Venus 2946. Here's Neptune 2946. Something that we are not immediately able to process, something that we're not completely aware of. This can tie back to whatever kind of shifted into focus on the 15th. Just to be clear, there's another reason why for that. So there can be something that brings up, that shifts a focus that is meant to bring something into light, bring something into the forefront, bring some kind of news, bring some kind of outcome. But some people can either be confused by it, blindsided by it, not completely clear as to what they're seeing, but it's hearkening into something new that is starting to come through. So Venus is sextile to Neptune is the first transit of the 17th. That's the most exact at 2:30 a.m. A couple hours later at 4:30, the sun will hit its sextile to Saturn. You can see that right here. That's the most exact around 4:30. I'm going to just keep this going through all the transits of the 17th, and then I'll kind of tie this all together. At 6:44 a.m., so I'm bumping this now to 7:30, Venus is going to enter Aquarius. While Venus is in this entry into Aquarius, the sun is building its trine to Uranus. That's actually going to be the most exact, roughly around 11 a.m. So get this now at 10:30. Here's the sun, 27:34. Here's Uranus, 27:35. You can see we're very, very close to it. There is something that is going to directly tie back to the 15th in some way whenever Venus hit her sextile to Saturn, trine to Uranus. But now the sun is here and we're bringing something more into focus. The sun is in Saturn's sign. So this focus could be something that we need to wrap up because this is happening at the very end degrees of certain signs. Venus also had that sextile to Neptune at the end degree of a sign. Awareness of something that we need to wrap up so something else can come through. So something else can be cemented. Very loose term. Submitted, acknowledged, this type of thing. There is layers to how this is going to unfold. I want to be clear about that. But a lot of transits on the 17th are happening just in about a 12-hour span. So Venus sextile to Neptune happened at 2:30 a.m. The sun's trine to Uranus is 11 a.m. But in that time span, we had 4 planetary transits. I'm not even talking about lunar transits, like, because on the month ahead, I don't usually include the moon on very many things unless it's like a necessary lunation. Now, the moon is in Capricorn, and we are building to a new moon in Capricorn. That's actually going to happen the next day on the 18th. So this vibration is bringing something new into focus, a new role, a new responsibility. It's cementing something for a lot of people. So let's go ahead and get into the 18th. Now, the thing about the 18th is we get that next Mercury-Mars conjunction. What was I saying about the Mercury-Mars conjunction? That the first one and the third one, they tie together. These two will also impact the 5th one that happens in April. Be very aware of the conversations, the tone, the information, the data that's coming through, the decisions we feel compelled to make. Because again, this is a Mercury-Mars conjunction. Where is it happening? In Saturn sign. What is also taking shape over this day? A new moon in Capricorn, a new moon in Saturn's sign. Very timely for some people, very karmic positions, roles, responsibility, shifting within ourselves. Some of us are going to have a very specific tone in our voice this day, and it's just not going to turn off. And the thing is like whenever you have a heavy tone in your voice and other people don't know where it's coming from, we can hurt some feelings. And I would not be surprised if some of the things that come to light over this new moon, if they don't hurt some feelings because of that Mercury-Mars conjunction. Okay. So Mercury-Mars number 3 at 1:45 a.m. The new moon is going to happen over the course of the day, more in the afternoon. So we're going to bump this roughly about 12 hours to get to that new moon. Yeah. Got it 1:30. Here's the sun. Here's the moon. It actually goes exact at 1:51 p.m., just to be clear. But it's still very tight in regards to Mercury, Mars, and even the moon over the course of the day. It made a conjunction to this Mercury, Mars. So this is a very loaded energy. And again, here's that new moon in Capricorn. Something new around the elders, new roles, new responsibilities, new productiveness. This new moon is in a trine to Uranus. It is signifying some other exciting for some, unexpected change for others. It is in a sextile to both Saturn and Neptune. Neptune is also wrapping up its trip through Pisces. So we can be solidifying some things that are going to be finally getting completed. But I mean completed in the sense of like, I've got this completed, and now that it's completed, we can do this other thing. I got the room painted. Now we can move in and live in the room. This level of completion. Transitional completion. I got this ready. I got this prepared. I got it built. Now we can use it. I got it installed. Now we can use it. For some people with the Uranus trine in here, there's going to be something tied to technology. For other people, it's going to be something very unexpected. There will be certain things that impact people in positions of power, new things coming through with our bosses. Now, the funny thing is, 2024 and 2025, while Saturn has been going through Pisces, we have seen more This is business new stuff. CFOs, CEOs, mergers, acquisitions. What do I mean by that? Smaller company being bought out by bigger company, or big companies merging together. The big one that keeps taking over the news over the last few weeks has been like the Time Warner purchase, whether it's going to go to Paramount or Netflix. And Paramount keeps like pushing to get it because he really wants that book of business. It wants those deals. But Netflix is like, we got the money. So there's something there. But we're seeing these big shifts in companies, management, business. Now, the thing is, if you had a business takeover back in 2025, some of the new hasn't fully taken effect yet. And I know that's really crazy to hear, but it's true, because it's like before they could even do a lot of the new that they needed to do, we needed to purge some things. We needed to clean some house. We needed to rectify. We needed to restructure. And parts of 2025 for that was the restructuring, making it sound very gentle. And it's like we go into 2026 very focused on this is how we're doing business moving forward. And with that in mind, that trajectory, that idea, that focus feels like the bigger tone. And a lot of this we're going to see in the collective is going to be things in the big management sense. Some of you guys are going to be dealing with some things with your new bosses. Some of you are going to be being completely released into your new role. Like, you're done with training. Guess what? You're in charge now. These are your people. This is your team. This is what you're going to be doing with. So there is this heaviness, but it doesn't have to be heavy in the sense of like depression. But I mean, putting something into place, putting in something into order level of heaviness. Role, responsibility, things along these lines too. Roles, responsibilities. There's a timeliness to this that's very intriguing to me. New moon in Capricorn, again, Mercury, Mars conjunction. We got two other transits, of course, that are going to go on throughout the 18th. This is going to happen more in the evening time. Mercury is definitely speeding up. So that's why we're going to do the evening time. Around 10:15 p.m., Mercury will hit its sextile to Saturn. So there's very quickly some additional news, some additional communication, some additional things coming through, letting us know that we are prepared, we are aware, more people asking questions of this is what we're going to be doing. By the time we get to right before midnight, so I'm just bumping this one more hour to 11:30, Mercury will also hit the trine to Uranus. We're also going through the Saturn-Uranus trine throughout I'm sorry, not trine, sextile. We're getting closer to this. This is actually going to go exact on the 19th. So for a lot of people, these transits are not just one particular area of your life. It is also collective energy where everybody is kind of coming online to something. They're becoming aware of something. People's new roles, new placements coming forward from here, that we're in the midst of new things being solidified for new long-term placement. Okay. Keeping bumping this by hour, we're getting into the 19th. Oh, in the afternoon, roughly around 4 p.m., I'm just rounding it out right now. Got this now at 3:30. The sun is going to hit its sextile to Neptune. Now, this is happening at the very end of the signs. Neptune, again, is just a few days away from completely leaving Pisces. We become very aware that something is done. For some people, this is going to have things to do with symptoms. And there can be something that kind of comes through that triggers insecurity, because we also have this building connection between Venus and Pluto that hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. It's actually happening on the same day. But I'm putting this in here because some of what comes to light, what comes into focus, can be like, I understand a lie, a fraud, deception. If we're going in this route, anytime we have Neptune, this can be a big part of the topic. For other people, it's a belief of something that's coming through. Sun's sextile to Neptune. For other people, it's going to be an awareness of symptoms. And if we're dealing with the health things, the symptoms, this can be another thing that kind of triggers more things around insecurity. Oh, we're still on the 19th. We're going to bump this now until 7:45 p.m. So bump this now to roughly 8:30. The sun goes into Aquarius. So after that sextile to Neptune, we shift again into something more focused. We're going into fixed air. And that means long-term energy, long-term vibrations, things that a lot of people are talking about. Aquarius is the symbol that impacts the masses and big groups of people just as much as it can have an impact on your individual chart. So this is very busy collective energy also. And right after the sun goes into Aquarius, we get into the exact sextile between Saturn and Uranus and the exact conjunction between Venus and Pluto. This is actually going to go exact roughly around 10 p.m. So I'm putting this at 10:30. Here's Pluto 3 degrees, 19 minutes. Sorry. Venus is 3 degrees, 20 minutes. Whenever you look at Saturn and Uranus, their sextile is exact. Now, this is going to go on for a few hours, and I'll put more emphasis on this whenever I do the weekly episode. But I feel like there's going to be things that arrive, that come into focus, that come into light over the course of these few days, that it's going to feel like one thing piling on after another, one big conversation after another, one big event after another, just stacking in little ways. And for a lot of us, by the time we get to the end of these few days, we're going to be freaking exhausted. I want to be clear about that. But whenever we get this Venus-Pluto conjunction, this can be very scary for some people. For other people, it is going to be, how do I want to say this next part? Venus-Pluto conjunctions can bring abusive energy. I want to be clear about that. And that's why it's like, for some people, this is not going to be fun. For other people, it is going to be like the benefit of something coming into focus, coming into light that triggers awareness of change. And considering one of the 4 planets that also goes into a conjunction with the sun will be Pluto, this one right here can bring extra layers of foreshadowing. And considering we have all those other things going on, some of us might just have so much that has hit over the course of a few days that we have no other choice but to talk to someone that we care about our fears. And Venus Pluto can be that. I'm scared of what's happening. I'm scared of this change. I'm scared of what's going on at work. I don't like the way this makes me feel. For some of you, you just need to tell somebody, like, you're changing before my eyes and it's freaking terrifying because I don't know where I fit in your new normal. And some people, that's a big conversation that we need to have. And it all comes down to how people receive that. Some people will be a healthy reception of like, look, I understand that you're scared. We've got so much going on. I'm doing my best. I'm doing this for us. You just have to trust me. And we just need to like work through our fears. But for other people, the minute you bring up that something is making you feel insecure, you're going to trigger frustration out of them. And for some people, this day is going to have levels of frustration, but it doesn't just feel like small frustration in the sense of like, I don't like the fact that you left the toilet seat up. No, this is bigger because of all the bigger outer planets, because it's setting something into stage. The thing about that Saturn Uranus is this is the last one. We've had 3 of these now. The first one happened back in April of 2025, April 4th. It's 4x4 day. The second one was August 11th. It was right after we ended the Mercury retrograde. The thing about April 4th, Mercury was retrograde, Venus was retrograde. Things were not clear back then. Back in August, Mercury was retrograde, had just ended its retrograde. I'm pretty sure it was just ending its retrograde. And that retrograde was impacting what we were going to do different in eclipse season. This is different. And we're setting more things forward. And the thing is, there's going to be some people that, again, it can tie back to the previous dates, but we're going to have insecurities that need to get worked through. And don't be surprised if we have to talk to people about like, this is what I'm scared is going to happen. This is how I'm scared that it's going to impact us. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm worried about. I'm nervous. It's going to happen. We're going to get nervous. All right, we're going to keep it going. Venus's conjunction to Pluto. Now, this all goes exact roughly around 10 p.m. At this 10:30 mark, you can see everything is still very exact and very tight. We'll have lunar transits throughout the course of this day also that I will deal with whenever we talk about the actual daily transits, just to be clear. Going to bump this now to the 20th, so just a few hours. So we're still doing this, the hourly thing. Right after midnight, Mars will enter this mix of hitting the trine. Let me bump this back an hour. I didn't mean to do that. Mars will hit the trine with Uranus and that sextile to Saturn simultaneously. There will be disruptions, there will be interruptions, there will be things that speak to insecurities that trigger fear through these few days. I want to be clear. And a lot of this, I do feel like some parts of this is collective and not always just what we're dealing with in our individual lives. And I want to be clear about that part. As clear as mud, because knowing what this is right now, I'm not entirely sure. I just know that there's something coming in January. All right, Mars will hit the full triplicity of adding its energy to Saturn as well as that trine to Uranus. We've just had the sun go into Aquarius, which is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. So there is layers of new that have come through, and some of that new can be triggering. It can have insecurities, it can have fears around it, but there's an action that is very big a part of this as we go from the 19th into the 20th. Mars's energy just happens to be the most exact right after midnight on the 20th, but the human effect is it can very much be a part of the 19th still too. As we get into the morning time, Mercury will make its sextile to Neptune. Some of us are going to be waking up Mercury sextile to Neptune and have no clue what happened the night before. What do you mean there was a fight between Johnny and Sally? What do you mean this happened? What do you mean? What do you mean? And for some people, there will be some things that we hear or we communicate or we're talking about that the other people are clueless. They're confused. They don't know nothing about it. What do you mean? And there will be some people that are very shocked, but it's like it's adding extra layers and emphasis as to what we need to focus on, what we're going to be working on, what we're going to be working towards, and certain news that's going to follow. Because right after Mercury goes through the sextile to Neptune, by 10:42 a.m., so I'm bumping this down to 11:30, Mercury is going to enter Aquarius. And as soon as Mercury enters Aquarius, it starts its cazimi. It's not exact yet. It actually goes exact on the 21st. But considering we have both of these planets that hit this ping pong effect of like Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, new sign, there's something meant to come to light, come into focus, some kind of news, some kind of a revealing. For some people, the human effect is it can be on the 20th. For other people, it is more likely to be the next day on the 21st. The Mercury cazimi is the most exact at 9:45 a.m. I got this at 11:30. I feel like that's close enough. Here's Mercury. Here's the sun coming into the heart of the sun. Mercury is coming into the heart. Certain things have been pulled back. Certain things have been shed, and there's something new coming into light. And considering this is again happening at the very beginning degrees of a sign, we have new things coming into focus. This is our third planet of the month hitting its conjunction to the sun. Mercury rules our logical brain. It can rule levels of information. It can reveal something around our cars and our automobiles, places that we need to travel to. Some of us are going to be forced to travel in these few days. And then this will be the arrival as to where you were needing to go or why you were needing to go somewhere. You see something differently. And it makes us aware of, like, again, things towards insecurities and triggers and stuff like that. We get our Mercury cazimi. 2 days, or not 2 days, 1 day later, on the 22nd, roughly around this same time, Mercury will hit its conjunction to Pluto. This is happening before the sun, but the sun is very close. It is happening after Venus. Venus could have brought certain things up to the surface, certain insecurities to the surface, certain things that we must trigger, that we must understand, that we must change. Part of it has to do with some old vibrations just as much as current vibrations, just to be clear. Mercury's conjunction to Pluto is information that triggers fear, triggers change, triggers insecurity. And considering over the course of this day, while Mercury and Pluto are hitting their conjunction, the moon is going to get closer to its conjunction to Saturn and Neptune. This feels like a roller coaster wave effect of everything that's been kind of going on since the 17th. Oh, on the 23rd, bump this a day. Well, bump it by hour. We're going back to the hour stuff. On the 23rd, just after midnight, we're going to get Mars's sextile to Neptune. So I got this now at 12:30. Here's Mars, 29 degrees, 54 minutes. Here's Neptune, 29:54. There is a push. There is an action. There is a reaction, letting us know that something is different. Something is ending or something is about to begin. Why am I saying about to begin? Because Neptune is wrapping up its trip through Pisces to go into Aries, to go into Mars's sign. Now, Neptune's been in Aries before. We're not quite there yet, but this feels like a little bit extra layers to the foreshadowing of what we're going to be doing next, of things that we're going to be focused on next, beliefs that we need to do, things that we're going to manifest, letting certain people know that certain things are again completed and prepared for the new. We're prepared for this new thing of whatever Neptune and Aries is going to represent for us. And some people might actually pick back up on patterns that go back to March and April of 2025, the last time Neptune switched signs from Pisces to Aries. This can have elements of foreshadowing from that time frame of what we're going into next, what we will be focused on next. Okay. Oh, Mars is sextile to Neptune right after midnight. By the time we get to 3:17 a.m., so I'm up this now to 3:30, Mars is going to enter Aquarius. You can see that here. And right after Mars enters Aquarius, we get our exact Sun-Pluto conjunction. This is actually going to be the most exact at 4:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. There is something about the days between the 17th, based off exact transits. I feel like we're going to have some buildup before then. But the 17th to the 23rd, it feels like a complete jumble of the playing board. A turn, a spin, a wrapping around. And what we were focused on months ago is going to be very, very different. The people that we're interacting with on a regular basis is going to be different. Our pattern is going to be different. The way that we are seen in our role is going to be different. Once we get into all of these planets in Aquarius, one, things will kind of slow down in a weird way, but they're slowing down because we've had so many shocks to the system. And this right here speaks to the next layer, the next arrival in the shocks. But it's also getting us closer to closing out a window of stuff that we even started back in 2024. I know layers, it's crazy, but there's a lot of compilations of the stuff from the past that has led us into where we're at now. The hard hits have led us into what we're going to be focusing on now. And Mars's arrival into Aquarius speaks to disruptive things, but it could also speak to things that trigger either one specific change that is necessary to transition, Sun conjunct Pluto, because that's happening simultaneously, or big or here, there's going to be something that triggers fear, wounds, insecurity, terrified. Some people by the end of these few days, they will be terrified because we've had this mountain of little events. I don't normally use this word. I need to be clear about that. Oh, and right around this time, the moon is hitting that full conjunction to Saturn. So this is going to be something tied to the elder. Anything tied to Pluto, Pluto is Hades. Like this is the god of death. Transformation can be forms of reincarnation. It can be Phoenix energy just as much as it can be the actual like loss of certain people whenever it comes to Sun conjunct Pluto. And sometimes the arrival of something around death or destruction or whatever is coming to a close, whatever is coming to an end, can also hearken to new beginnings. If you take this back to my face, if you think of the Tower card, the Tower card is everything falling apart. But the next card in the tarot deck is the Star card. It is the awakening. It is the epiphany. It is the awareness of the new version of you. There is differences in the vibration after the Tower card of what you awaken to within yourselves, what you awaken to in your surroundings, what you awaken to within certain people, about certain places, about certain things. There is an awakening here. For some people, you're going to like the change. For other people, you're going to see so much change all of a sudden, and it's going to trigger insecurities. It's going to trigger fear. I don't know which way everybody is going to go, but as we get closer to this, it will make more sense why we feel triggered, because that's the best word I got right now. Sun's conjunction to Pluto, Mars' entry into Aquarius. The Sun Pluto is exact at 4:30 a.m. So if I bump this an hour, you can see it. We were there anyways. Mercury's still in this mix, so we do have foreshadowing to whatever this is going to be based off of Venus and Mercury's conjunction to Pluto over those few days. But a lot of this energy feels like something new is coming into focus, something new is coming into light. And this is the fourth and final planet in January making a conjunction to the sun, shedding light on something, bringing something into focus, bringing something into the forefront. Okay. Bumps us now a few days to the 26th. And on the 26th, this is whenever Neptune is going to re-enter Aries. Now, this is going to happen at 11:35 a.m. So I'm going to bump this now to 12:30. And here is Neptune, 0 degrees, 0 minutes. The last time Neptune went into Aries, it was the pinky toe dip of 2025. It started March 30th. It ended October 22nd. Oh, look, we're back to that October timeframe again. That week of October 20th, when certain things were coming into light, letting us know some things we needed to purge and clear out and let go of, certain things that we didn't need to believe anymore, that we didn't need to focus on anymore. By the time we get to the end of January, we are very much clear of like what we have released, because there's still going to be some human effect lingering of release as we go through January. But I think as more and more new things come through, it's like it takes the place anyways, and we don't even have to have the conversations. But now Neptune has completely belly flopped, submerged into Aries. This is a part of a new fueling in our belief system. It's kind of hinky. For other people, it's going to be new things in your treatment and in your health. And I'll talk more about that in the closing, like I said I would. But Neptune is now completely submerged into Aries. And again, whatever we had with Mars and Neptune that few days earlier could have given us some foreshadowing of some things. Okay. On the 27th, Mars is going to hit its conjunction to Pluto. Now, this is going to be most exact, roughly around 5 p.m. Mars-Pluto conjunctions are very interesting because, again, they only happen once every 2 years. The thing about this one is this is also closing out a cycle that started back at the beginning of 2024, specifically the week of Valentine's 2024. That week, we had a Venus-Pluto conjunction and a Mars-Pluto conjunction. But the Mars one is different because at the beginning of 2025, we were in a Mars retrograde. And in that Mars retrograde, we had multiple oppositions between Mars and Pluto. One that happened early November 2024. It was election week for those that need a physical reminder. The first weeks of January of 2025, we had the second Mars-Pluto opposition, and there was a lot of unrest. There was a lot of insecurity. There was a lot of frustration. The final Mars-Pluto happened in late April of 2025, and we were finally able to start taking some actions after that opposition that we weren't able to work through and continue, that we wanted to do back in 2024, but we couldn't. And we literally didn't start picking up on them until like that late spring going into summer of 2025. But what's interesting about that, though, and what was kind of different about its vibration, is we were all kind of submerged into the new normal. If you were listening to me back then, I was like, look, it's like we went through a obstacle course of energy at the last half of 2024, the first part of 2025, and we went into April, late April, May, right whenever we had that Mars-Pluto opposition. And it was like we came off a waterfall and just submerged into new water. For some of us, we were quick to get back up to the surface. But if you come off of a waterfall, if you've ever jumped into water from a high point or fell into it from a high point, you don't just float on the surface from the beginning. No. You sink before you come back up. Some of us, we were submerged into water. We were completely oblivious to some of the actions, reactions, the accountability that took place. There was a cycle that started back in February, it was roughly around the week of Valentine's 2024, that ends in this Mars-Pluto conjunction. Simultaneously, a new Mars-Pluto cycle is going to begin. So we might be tying some bows on some things, some disruptive things, while also connecting an action and activity point that we will continue and the next layer and the next round of over the course of the next 2 years. And it's always 2 years when it comes to the Mars-Pluto stuff, unless Mars's retrograde includes connections to Pluto, which is not going to happen for a very long time. Last time we had that happen was back in 2018. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, this is going to be fiery. This is going to be abrupt. This is going to be frustrating for a lot of people. But what's interesting is if you notice, we also have this little development going on between Mercury and Venus. And we're getting very, very close to their second conjunction in their series of three. I haven't been as heavy about this one because I don't feel like everybody is going to be able to clue into this one quite the same. These two had a conjunction back during the Mercury retrograde, the last one that we had, and it was the most exact November 24th. Here's this one that it's building. It's actually the most exact on the 29th because they're going to go like right after midnight. Bumping this by hour to get it closer. There it is. Okay. 4:30 a.m. Here's Venus. Here's Mercury. Here's their conjunction. They're in a series of three. So this right here can still tie back to the Mercury retrograde that happened in November. Installing an energy of like committing to why change was necessary back then, but also solidifying something new in this moment. For some people, that new is going to be an insecurity because we still have Mars, Pluto very active while this is going on. For other people, it is going to be, again, something towards a solution or an idea of how we put something forward. We are kind of in a stagnant vibration when we get into this last part of January because we're waiting for another planet to turn direct that's not actually going to turn direct until February, and that is Uranus. So don't be surprised if in this insecurity of Mars Pluto, if we don't also have an immediate stagnation, even if we have good, healthy communication of some kind of benefit with Mercury Venus, there's still something also very frozen and stagnating. And it does feel like some level of shock or surrealness now that Neptune is back in Aries. There can also be a surrealness and a fueling in a lot of ways towards a certain kind of belief based off of the historic accuracy of like the last few times we've had Neptune in Aries. So I haven't talked about this in a really long time. Neptune in Aries, historically speaking, was the start of the Civil War. Go that far back? Yeah. It was the start of the Civil War, Neptune going into Aries. We've had a lot of civil unrest through 2025. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear this next part, but it lines up with the astrology. And I do feel like part of the fire air energy of 2026 is going to be new forms of unrest, fueling to go into a new direction, to go into a challenge. I don't know how soon the challenge picks up, but I do feel like there will be a pickup to push against certain beliefs and certain fueling. The other thing that happened historically while Neptune was going through Aries, I have a specific reason why I'm doing this comparison, and some people are not going to like the fact that I say this next part, but it's true. I'm going off historical accuracy, not a political belief system. You can believe whatever form of politics you want. This is not this kind of conversation. I'm going off of the history. The other thing that happened when Neptune was in Aries after the Civil War was the creation of the Ku Klux Klan, which led into big forms of organized lynch mobs. Doesn't ICE sometimes feel like a modern version of that? Whether you agree with it or not, that's a different conversation. I'm not doing that part. There's going to be some additional layers of civil unrest. There's going to be additional layers of fighting. There's going to be additional layers of aggression that are going to come through. Throughout 2026, there will be something that will charge people. We might see the first things that speak to charging, fueling people into a new belief and into a new reaction. Not everybody's going to agree with that. Not everybody's going to understand that. There are other things about Neptune and Aries that I did focus on whenever I was more doing my paying attention to back in the summer, and that was the health energy around Neptune and Aries. Some of the things that I didn't anticipate, because there's not enough historical notes to kind of go through this, is there was a huge influx of like illnesses spreading. And I think all of us seen that after Neptune went into Aries. First rounds would have been the measles stuff and stuff like that, things that we have immunizations again, but suddenly we, because people didn't do their immunizations, now that we have different illnesses that we weren't going to do before. And I feel like there's been a different control around medicines with Saturn and Neptune building to their conjunction that we didn't quite have before. And I think that's a reason that we are seeing this big change in regards to some of the healthcare acts going through based off the transits, and also what I see in the political side. Just the news. I don't know that I want to say political side, the news, like you can see it, because you can also see like there's other changes if you watch business news. I watch Bloomberg, I watch business news. I do this all the time. You guys know that, because whenever I see something happen, just as much as you can see it in the transits, you can see it when people start to react emotionally with their money. The market also shows something. Well, there's been big influxes in treatments and companies that are bringing new treatments. The one that takes the center stage for everybody is things has to do like GLP-1s. I'm not saying that correctly. Not a fan, because every time I meditate with somebody and they're on those, like I tend to feel something in my body, like reacting, like, what is wrong with your kidneys? It's weird. It's a very weird conversation to continuously have with somebody, but I always tend to pick up on that. The other thing that I saw with the first round of Neptune going into Aries, still going off of health stuff, was influxes of parasites. Makes my skin crawl, but it's true. A lot of you, I've had conversations about this, parasites and blood-borne illnesses. I saw an influx of people that had brain tumors. Aries, head. This is why I'm saying this. Mars rules this part of your head. Mars rules the blood. Leukemia. There was an influx of people that had a sudden onset of leukemia over the course of last spring to summer while Neptune was going through Aries. And then for a lot of people, like there was immediate needs for treatment. Some people actually passed away because of it, but there was this huge boom, and I saw it all over through multiple people's sessions and multiple things, a huge influx of bloodborne illnesses. And that's why I was saying, like with the Sun Mars stuff, some people will have new things come through in their blood tests that are going to impact the focus of the new normal of Neptune going into Aries. And whatever that's going to be is going to be something around that. The other thing that I am anticipating, this is now going off of the health for just a second, inflation. I feel like everything going on right now, we have another wave of inflation that needs to hit. And historically speaking, Neptune in fire signs usually brings some kind of inflation of some sort. Now, for some people, this inflation will be like an influx of people going into new fields. That's a normal thing. But I also anticipate like a financial inflation too. Another round of it coming now that Neptune completely submerges into Aries. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to try to control it, because Saturn being so close, I feel like a lot of people are going to try to do everything they can to control that. But eventually, Saturn will separate from Neptune. Their conjunction isn't even exact until February, but eventually it's going to separate. And when that separation happens, I think that that's when we lose control of inflation, and there will be an effect that follows it. What do you want to do with that? I don't know. This is the stuff that I'm seeing. There will be an influx of a new kind of medicine, new kind of treatment, big changes in treatments and medicine. Even if it's not something that you're taking on as an individual, you can see other people that they're trying new medicines, or they're being forced onto new medicines because new things in their health have come to light, especially health around the elders, because so much of the sun planetary conjunctions, whether it's Venus, Mars, Mercury, or Pluto, they're all happening in Saturn signs. Saturn is the only ruler of Capricorn. He is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, the modern ruler being Uranus. And we have a Saturn-Uranus sextile that is taking shape at the end of the month, and it's the third wave. So we have something really coming into shape that we couldn't quite put our finger on before, because there were other transits that were kind of muddying the water to what we could have seen before. And some of these real big sextiles between the outer planets have been environmental change. And I mean that in the sense that they're in the collective and maybe not so much for you as an individual. And I want to be clear, some of the new in January, it's not just you picking some new thing, Sun conjunct Venus, Sun conjunct Mars. For some of you, it is going to be something that is happening in society that impacts you. You didn't choose it, everybody else did. That can go good, that can go bad. That's where I get hazy. I feel like for some people, when we get into more of 2026, there will be new arenas and new sectors of business. And again, new drives, new determination, new ambitions that start to take shape. But the first like revealings as to what those are going to be kind of come through between January and February before we actually make decisions. I think more February, we're making some decisions that require immediate change. Oh, so something new can start in April. That's the kind of the energy that I'm seeing, but we don't even know what those decisions are going to be because we don't know what's coming into light yet. And January is what's bringing things into focus. It's bringing it into light. It's bringing new things into the forefront. It's making us see something that we were unable to see before. There's an awareness. Some people are ready for this awareness. Some people are not. And if you're not, you're more likely to deal with the triggered vibrations of what January is going to be. But sometimes the only way people will make a change is not if they're hopeful, but if they're fearful. I can't continue in this pattern. They react from fear, which is not an easy reaction, but still. There's something coming into focus. For some of us, it is an individual thing. For other people, it is going to be society. It is going to be the collective. It is going to be large groups. It is going to be your workforce. It is going to be the people you surround yourself with. It's going to be the people at school. It's going to be something bigger than just yourself, but it still impacts you. As heavy as all this sounds, I'm still really hopeful. I know, I sound weird. Maybe it's because it's all Capricorn stuff, and I actually love Capricorn, and I'm perfectly fine with taking new roles and responsibility. Maybe it's just the Capricorn side, but I am hopeful for what everything brings to light. But I also know that certain people need a different type of push, pull, fueling to get them to make a change. Some of y'all have had no choice but to do levels of disconnection over the course of 2025. And again, it was making space. And now it's about making the right choices. Because again, this start of this new year is a heavy energy towards setting clear intentions for a manifestation. It's very powerful energy. If you use it wisely, you can really turn 2026 into a bang of a year. But for other people, if we don't make good decisions, and everybody's individual decisions are your own, so that's the thing. If you make selfish decisions, if you make impulsive decisions, if you react from a place of anger versus a place of focus, you come from a place of selfishness versus fairness. I'm telling you, by the end of 2026, the tests that come will dismantle you. It will derail you. It will pull things back. It will pull things away. And not everybody's prepared for that, but it's true. There is something that is coming into light, coming into focus. And the best thing I can say is go into this with pure intentions. Because those that do not go into this vibration with pure intentions, you're going to hate fourth quarter of 2026 and the start of 2027. And I'm not ready to talk about all that yet, but I'm warning. Go into this vibration with pure intentions. Okay. Oh, I know this is a long one. It's a lot. It's a big month. There's a lot of transits going on. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things that are meant to come to light. We got discoveries coming very, very quickly. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Hit me up with questions. Hit me up with concerns. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.